right at your fingertips.
Very good afternoon. We are live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence Summit, focus on bridging the gap between theory and practice on AI. Country sharply divided over fossil fuels phase out at COP28. EU, US islands urge phase out. OPEC opposes COP29 to be held in Azerbaijan. IMF grants Ukraine additional $900 million disbursement. Zelensky to meet US President and top congressional officials seeking continued military aid. So India will be hosting the Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence Summit beginning Tuesday. The GPI is a forum of 28 nations and the European Union that is working together to address the challenges and opportunities of artificial intelligence and to promote its responsible evolution. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be inaugurating the three-day summit on Tuesday evening.
More than 150 delegates from 29 member countries as well as some visitor countries like the UAE will gather in New Delhi to participate in the worldwide platform on artificial intelligence, or the GPI, of which India is the incoming chairman.
Today, the world looks up to India for technology solutions. The world wants to partner with India for co-creation of technologies. The world looks for thought leadership on key issues like 6G, key issues like AI.
India would be aiming at building a consensus amongst the member nations for a declaration document on AI by the end of the summit, which would focus on AI promoting innovation and dealing with risks it poses.
We are negotiating a declaration document, which we hope will be able to arrive at some consensus. Basically, today the world's thinking on AI is kind of converging. People understand the dangers, people understand the potential, people look up to the benefits which can come, and people also, the entire world wants to put certain guardrails.
Upon India's insistence, the use of AI for sustainable agriculture is an area that has been added to the summit agenda. The focus of the last GPI held at Osaka in Japan was on responsible AI. The recent Bletchley Declaration after the AI Safety Summit in the UK last month is also likely to find resonance in the declaration to be adopted at GPI in Delhi. Amritpal Singh for DD India.
Barely few hours left for the concluding session of the COP28 Climate Summit in Dubai. Nearly 200 countries remain sharply divided on the contentious issue of fossil fuels. A draft of a potential climate deal at the COP28 summit on Monday suggested a range of options that countries could take to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but omitted the phase-out of fossil fuels many nations have demanded. The draft that has set the stage for a final round of negotiations has exposed deep international divisions over whether oil, gas and coal should have a place in a climate-friendly future. The COP28 President Sultan Al Jaber held an urgent tone on Monday night when he asked negotiators in fact to find consensus.
Norway wants phase out of fossil fuels, and we use the G7 language, phase out of unabated fossil fuels. The same is true for the United States, which is a fossil producer, for Canada, for Australia, and for many of the countries that are producing oil and gas. We recognize that we need to save the planet, we need to phase that out. It has to be an orderly and just transition, but the end game is that we have an energy system with no emissions. And to have an energy system with no emissions, it has to be based on non-emitting sources.
for the time being, we are not in that position. We want to get what we came here to fight for.
Also, big powers like the US and the EU that have pushed for a phase-out were not pleased, and tiny ones like Samoa and the Marshall Islands were calling it a death sentence.
If we do not have strong mitigation outcomes at this COP, then this will be the COP where 1.5 would have died. We will not sign our gift certificate. We cannot sign on to text that does not have strong commitments on phasing out fossil fuels. As SIDS, we feel our voices are not being heard, while it appears that several other parties have enjoyed preferential treatment, compromising the transparency and inclusivity of the process.
And Democratic Senator Ed Markey, part of a 7-member team of US senators visiting the talks at OPEC, as well as oil and US companies, were attempting to whitewash the crisis that has been created by fossil fuels.
COP should conclude with a final statement that says that the world wants to end this addiction. It wants to phase out fossil fuels. OPEC does not want to phase out fossil fuels. They made that very clear yesterday. They want a discussion at this COP about emissions reductions without talking about the fossil fuels.
Meanwhile, the COP28 Climate Summit in Dubai on Monday approved a proposal to hold the next iteration of the annual event in the Central Asian Republic of Azerbaijan.
Dear Mr. President, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply honored and humbled by the opportunity to address this esteemed gathering of the 28th session of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Our sincere gratitude goes out to the Convention Secretariat and the host country, United Arab Emirates, for their tireless efforts in organizing this extraordinary event. The challenges we face demand collective action and dedication to the commonly agreed objectives and aspirations. Azerbaijan understands the critical importance of collaborative efforts to combat climate change.
All right, let's go across to Dubai now, where DD India's John Beaver is joining us live. John, last day of the summit today, in fact, few hours left for it to end, with a lot of disagreement about what the text from the summit should say. Tell us, what are the main divisive issues?
Well, as we've been hearing there, it is all about fossil fuel, isn't it? It's about whether there is any place for fossil fuel in a world that is battling climate change. Now, oil-rich countries would say, yes, you can still use some fossil fuels, but you have to work on things like carbon capture technology in order to lock away the harmful emissions that come from them. But a lot of scientists and a lot of other developed nations say, no, that's just not the case. What you need is far more renewable energy, and we need to end this reliance on fossil fuels entirely. We heard there the US delegation calling it an addiction on fossil fuels, and that is very much the feeling from many here. And then, of course, we have a third point of view, developing nations saying that actually, as much as they might want to move away from fossil fuels, they need better funding, they need better access to finance in order to do that. The move away from things like coal power to solar and to wind is expensive, and they need better funding in order for that to happen. So there is a huge amount of disagreement here still. I'm just looking at the time now. The actual summit here was due to finish in 21 minutes from now, but nobody thinks that's going to happen. There is still a lot to negotiate.
Not likely to end, you are saying, the next 20-21 minutes. But John, the draft has set the stage for contentious last-minute negotiations. Tell us what is likely to happen in the next 24 hours or so.
Well, in order for there to be an agreed text, as what they call it here, then all the nations here have to agree on that. And trying to find that agreement when you have so many differing opinions, of course, is very difficult. We are here in Dubai, in the UAE, in a nation that is very oil rich. We've heard a lot as well about Saudi Arabia, another oil rich country that relies on oil for its GDP. So don't expect countries like that to want to agree to give up fossil fuels anytime soon. But that is what we've heard from places like Samoa in the Pacific Islands, who are saying that unless there is a firm deal, there is some strong words, some strong agreements, that this is their death sentence, that the world warming more than 1.5 degrees will cause an increasing rise in sea levels, and that those low-lying countries saying that unless there is an agreement here, then it's a death sentence for them. So there are some very strong words coming out of this. What we have heard, if you are looking for a glimmer of hope in all of this, is that there is an agreement to try and triple the use of renewable energy by 2030. But it is all about these fossil fuels, whether there is any role for fossil fuels in the future in a world that is battling climate change.
A lot of different opinions. Let's see what happens next. Thanks for the time being, John, but keep tracking this. We'll keep taking updates from you. Moving on, International Monetary Fund's Executive Board on Monday approved a $900 million disbursement for Ukraine from its $15.6 billion loan program, as IMF chief Kristalina Georgieva met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Washington. The IMF said the Ukrainian economy continued to show remarkable resilience despite Russia's invasion in February 2022. Georgieva congratulated Zelensky on the positive economic growth amid the war and pledged continued support for Ukraine. Listen in.
Inflation in Ukraine continues to go down to 5.1% in November. Many countries around the world envy you for that achievement. And the governance of the country strengthens from a month to a month. We will continue to work closely with Ukraine, and we will continue to call on those who support Ukraine to remain steadfast in their financial support.
And Zelensky thanked the IMF and international allies for their ongoing support and praised the resilience of the people during the ongoing war.
We really demonstrated that we can reform our country during the war. From our side, we are thankful for these, our warriors, and of course, USA partners and European partners for our air defending shield. It really helps, and we will continue. To do this and to make our cities more secure. It's very important that also we had good dialogue, and we are thankful to IMF, Kristalina, that I heard now and see it that you will support us financially.
And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is expected to make a crucial pitch to US lawmakers on Tuesday, as the fate of billions of dollars of US assistance remains in limbo. Republicans say they aren't willing to approve the new funding unless the Democrats and President Biden concede to major immigration policy changes on the US southern border. DD India's Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
On his third visit to Washington, D.C. since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, President Zelensky is making a last-ditch plea to Congress for more funding. The White House says the visit will, quote, underscore the United States' unshakable commitment to supporting the people of Ukraine. But time is running out to see that support continue. Republican senators last week blocked $106 billion in emergency aid, which was primarily for Ukraine and Israel, because the package didn't contain the immigration reforms they demanded. US President Joe Biden's warned that a failure to pass the new funding would hand Russian President Vladimir Putin a victory and embolden him to invade more European countries. Congress has already passed billions of dollars worth of military and economic funding for Ukraine, but securing additional money to help it continue to defend its country against Russia has become harder, as more Republicans have questioned the scale of the funding and how it's being used. President Zelensky has not yet been invited to speak in the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, though he will meet the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and he's been invited to speak at an all-senators meeting on Tuesday morning. He's expected to give a press conference later in the day after his White House meeting with President Biden. Kate Fisher in Washington reporting for DD India.
All right, moving on to our next story now. Russia said on Monday that its forces attacked Ukrainian arsenal, while Ukraine claimed its troops attacked a Russian command post. Russia's defense ministry said Russian forces repelled many Ukrainian offensives in eastern Ukraine and Kherson in southern Ukraine. On the same day, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine said 73 battles between Ukrainian and Russian forces took place in frontline areas. And Russian President Vladimir Putin has promised to boost Russia's naval power as he attended the inauguration of 2 nuclear submarines. Putin traveled to the northern city of Severodvinsk to view the vessels, the Krasnoyarsk and Emperor Alexander III at the Sevmaz shipbuilding yard. The Emperor Alexander III is part of Russia's new Bore class of nuclear submarines, the first new generation it has launched since the Cold War. The Krasnoyarsk belongs to the Yasen class of multi-purpose submarines equipped with long-range, high-precision missiles that Putin said could strike both sea and land targets. Putin said both nuclear-powered vessels would soon take up duty in the Pacific. All right, we'll slip into a very short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Rishi Sunak faces tense UK parliamentary showdown over Rwanda asylum plan. Lawmakers to vote on his divisive plan on Tuesday. India beat Netherlands 4-3 to reach the semi-finals of Hockey Men's Junior World Cup.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibility. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday, 8 p.m. only on DD India.
This is a story of Dal Lake of Naya Kashmir.
मैं बड़ी होकर ऑफिसर बनने चाहती हूँ, दूसरी बात मैं पुलिस बननी चाहती हूँ।
बहुत काम आया, उसका टूरिस्ट आया, उसका काम बहुत जलता है। यहाँ पे तो अभी बहुत कुछ बदला है। यहाँ का जो अभी गवर्नमेंट है, उन लोगों ने बहुत कुछ किया यहाँ पे।
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. Updates on Israel-Hamas conflict. The 193-member General Assembly is scheduled to vote on a draft resolution that is similar to the one blocked by the United States in the 15-member Security Council last week. The current draft resolution aims to bring immediate humanitarian ceasefire in the besieged Gaza Strip. The vote was due a day after 12 Security Council envoys visited the Egyptian side of the Rafah border, crossing with Gaza, the only place where limited humanitarian aid and fuel have entered. But the United States did not send a representative on the trip. As per some diplomats and observers, the vote will garner greater support than the Assembly's October call for an immediate, durable and sustained humanitarian truce. Moreover, the United States has shown concern over the reports claiming Israel using US-supplied white phosphorus munitions in a Lebanon attack. The US State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller reiterated that legitimate military use for white phosphorus is allowed, but that does not include using them on civilians.
Concerned by the reports of the use of white phosphorus. Obviously, there is a legitimate military use for white phosphorus, but that does not include using them on civilians. Israel is engaged in a very difficult military campaign against a terrorist organization that says it wants to repeat the attacks of October 7th. He decided that with respect to this sale, this was a munition that they needed on an urgent basis, and so it necessitated an emergency authorization to provide those munitions. But that does not in any way lessen their obligation to act in full compliance with international humanitarian law.
And refuting US reports claims, Israeli army said that Israeli troops are operating legally and according to the international law.
Regarding the issue of phosphorus activated in Lebanon, we are operating in one clear way, legally and according to international law. This is how we operate. This is how we exert force both in the north and in the south, and this is how we will continue to operate.
While Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said that Israel had no intention of staying permanently in the Gaza Strip and that it was open to discussing alternatives about who would control the territory as long as it was not a group hostile to Israel.
Israel will take any measures in order to destroy Hamas, but we have no intention to stay permanently in Gaza Strip. We only take care of our security and the security of our citizens alongside the borders with Gaza and elsewhere.
UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is facing a battle to persuade Tory MPs to back his flagship Rwanda bill ahead of a keynote. The legislation seeks to revive the government's plan to send some asylum seekers to the East African country. MPs on the right of the party have said the bill does not go far enough and will not work in its current form. But more centrist MPs warned against any changes which would breach international law. Parliament will hold the first vote on the draft law today evening. It would only take about 30 Conservative members of Parliament to vote with opposition parties to defeat the bill. Today is the 6th day of the winter session of the Indian Parliament. In the lower house, that is Lok Sabha, the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganisation Bill 2023 and the Government of Union Territories Bill 2023 were introduced for discussion and passing in the lower house of the Parliament. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will also introduce the appropriation bills for introduction, consideration and passing. While in upper house of the Parliament, the Repealing and Amending Bill 2023 and the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners Appointment, Conditions of Service and Term of Office Bill 2023 will be moved for consideration and passing. Now, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in a newspaper editorial piece lauded the Supreme Court historic judgment on the abrogation of Articles 370 and 35A. In the article, PM Modi said that the verdict has strengthened the spirit of Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat. Court upholds the sovereignty and integrity of India. Today, every child in Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh is born with a clean canvas. Due to these laws, distance was created between people belonging to same nation. Rather than taking a clear position on basic things, you allow duality leading to confusion. Sadly, J&K became a victim of such mindset. People of J&K want development and want to contribute to the development of India. And with a firm resolve to make India a developed nation by 2047, The Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra reached Khurda district in India's eastern state of Odisha. The program witnessed large gathering and locals were informed about the benefits of central government welfare schemes. Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra is being undertaken across the country to attain saturation of flagship schemes of the government by ensuring that the benefits of these schemes reach all targeted beneficiaries in a time-bound manner. The Vikas Bharat Sankalp Yatra van also reached Farrukhabad district in India's state of Uttar Pradesh, where public representatives, government officials, employees and a large number of rural women, men and children participated in good strength. Information about the public welfare schemes of the Indian government were given to the citizens. The state leaders present at the program also distributed the approval letters of the Prime Minister's residence scheme to the farmers and eligible persons. And India marks a pivotal moment in India's journey towards becoming a top-notch manufacturing hub for cutting-edge mobile technology. Top mobile manufacturing companies like Apple and Samsung have also expanded their manufacturing operations in India, solidifying the nation's role in the global supply chain. India's democratic environment provides a stable and trusted setting for global supply chains, making it an appealing alternative to China. The transition in supply chain dynamics is evident with a remarkable increase in US and European greenfield investment in India, while investments in China have decreased significantly. Hockey now. The Indian junior men's hockey team has booked a spot in the semi-final of the Hockey Men's Junior World Cup after they defeated Netherlands 4-3 in the second quarterfinals on Tuesday in Kuala Lumpur. India trailed behind the Netherlands by 2 goals till the half-time, but a fight back in the second half ensured that the score was 3-2. Saurabh Anand Kushwaha equalized for India. Following this, Captain Uttam Singh led from the front and gave India 1-goal lead in the dying moment of the match. The Indian team entered into the quarterfinals high on confidence after defeating Canada 10-1. They also beat Korea 4-2 before losing their second match to Spain 1-4. The semi-finals and finals of the tournament will take place on 14th and 16th respectively. And that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.